Imagine yourself as a child, pure, innocent, new to the world, slowly learning and understanding how things function, how people work, how you as an individual grow and flourish into an adult. For children, this should be a normal thing, a healthy and reliable foundation that provides comfort and support through the connection of knowledge. Unfortunately and sadly, not every child gets this opportunity. Not every child has a loving support system. Not every child is allowed direct understanding of situations. Not every child is promised to grow. And the worst of it, not every child survives. So what changes? What happens to turn such an innocent individual that's so fresh to the world into someone that's completely unrecognizable, someone distorted, someone deeply corrupted? Enough so that when a child does grow into an adult, they're stunted, that their bloom into adulthood is rotten and subconsciously derailed. One word, which has an endless number of varying situations connected to it, with an equal amount of dangerously differing emotions for someone at such a young age. An experience that changes people to their core, potentially restructuring any sort of normalcy within their everyday life, and replacing it with horror, with dread, with existential fear. This one word should never be connected to children. They should never be tarnished by such an experience. Yet sadly and way too commonly, it does happen. This word is trauma, and the crippling effects it can have on an individual of any age, to any degree. More so often poisoning them mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and even physically. How do you think such trauma could be handled by a child? A child that has no one to lean on, no one to talk to, no one to ask for help. Over time, that event becomes hidden away, bottled up, or barricaded deep within oneself, never to be touched again. However, it's never that simple. Sooner or later, any sort of defense that was placed around that trauma would start to deteriorate, and a difficult option would be given to open that door and confront a challenging dark past, potentially saving yourself, or completely ignore it while it continues to eat away at your very being and very well could take your life. From all of this, whatever you may have just imagined, connected to a young child, one specifically known as Denji, as a gruesome and terrifying image that no child should go through, it starts to become a lot more clear. A horrifying reality that is unfortunately extremely real. You know what the best word would be to describe Chainsaw Man? Chaotic. In every sense, element, or concept, it's easily the best fit, and one that connects a lot of differing substructure back to its strong foundation. What's even more impressive is how chaotic Chainsaw Man is while being confined to Weekly Shonen Jump's guidelines. Enough so that you wouldn't be wrong to think that this story is potentially misplaced, that you swear it should be within a different magazine, specifically a seinen one. However, even within these well-established boundaries of Weekly Shonen Jump's magazine, Chainsaw Man undoubtedly thrives, and better yet, continues to push those said boundaries forward, allowing for a fractional increase towards more hard-hitting, disturbing, and realistic themes to shine through more clearly and more often. Chainsaw Man isn't the only series doing this, but it's the only one testing those limitations so frequently, so deeply, and back to its original description, so chaotically. The purpose for this slight overview is to provide a small perspective that you may or may not already have. There's no doubt in my mind that if you have read Chainsaw Man, you undoubtedly understand and have experienced the polarizing journey it sends you on. However, this is only the surface, and while it does dive under the waves little by little, it's still rather coy. So the importance of providing a small surface perspective will hopefully play as a nice starting point before we dive deeper, before we explore and uncover what could potentially be some of the darkest themes within the story, hiding in plain sight. In my mind, the story of Chainsaw Man is only just beginning, as we come to learn and understand new information that not only recontextualizes the whole narrative prior, but also our viewpoint on those characters. The one I want to focus on, the one I've been so extremely excited and eager to understand more efficiently, is none other than Denji himself. I wholeheartedly love Denji as a character. On the surface, he's silly, goofy, rough around the edges, raw and authentic, just to name a few. However, I started to feel a group of emotions that hadn't necessarily been portrayed by him, an emotion that wasn't warranted yet. The likes of melancholic, depressive, saddening, and heartbreakingly tragic. You probably think I'm silly for thinking along those lines, and honestly I wouldn't blame you. But as my hunch that bolstered those emotions started to grow bigger, the picture that was starting to be painted was becoming a lot more clearer. That underneath the wild, chaotic experience that Chainsaw Man gives on the surface lay dormant something viciously surreal and dark concepts that would perfectly connect itself to the story. We've already seen fractions of this, so let's see if we can continue to paint a portion of that image ourselves, with that said fraction being none other than Denji and the completely broken mind he could be harboring. If you end up enjoying this video, consider subscribing. I greatly appreciate it. If I were to tell you that Denji is 16 years old, would you have a hard time believing it? Probably not. I mean, he looks around that age, right? Surely he couldn't be far off it if it wasn't true. Alright, well, what if I reframe the question to make it easier? Would you believe Denji is 16 years old mentally, even emotionally? You may answer that confidently and quickly, which is perfectly alright, but I encourage you to take a slight step back and open up to the idea of seeing Denji's mental stability and emotional architecture through a different lens, through a different viewpoint. This lensed perspective would be my own, and how I've come to slowly view Denji as an unstable, broken, and emotionally distorted individual. To understand how I got to this idea, I need to set the groundwork to make it easier. I need to paint half the image so the remaining picture can be visualized more clearly, which thus results in understanding my own perspective. So where do we begin? Over the 80 plus chapters of Chainsaw Man's journey, we have had a litany of beautiful examples, situations, and displays of Denji within his truest moments. Some could even say his most human moments. Not only do these moments allow for a better understanding of Denji, they periodically evolve within the expanding narrative, all while connecting to sub-moments that help fill his character. These titular moments orbit around desire, more specifically his own. However, an interesting thing about one's desire is the many forms of approach it comes in. To name some basic ones, baseless desires have no groundwork, nothing to start from. To put simply, shooting for the stars. A small child wanting to be an astronaut when he's older is a baseless desire. It's not impossible, but there's nothing that child can do at such an age currently that could propel him in a direction to help fulfill his desire. Grounded desires are basically the opposite, working towards or being in a place where the possibility of fulfilling that desire is highly probable, even achievable. But the important one I want to focus on is situational desires. These are desires that are built from any situation that yourself is currently within, whether it be physically, emotionally, mentally, or even spiritually. The range for this is basically endless, and people will view it entirely differently based on their own circumstances. Any one of us could have the desire to want to be rich or famous, having a beautiful family, traveling the world, seeing an alien, mastering another language. And while some of these are definitely possible, some are equally not, and more so just a shot in the dark. However, how would you feel if someone's true desire was stuff you may take for granted, like eating a sandwich, living in a nice house that's warm, appreciating a delicious drink, maybe even fall in love and feel some breasts? Probably ask yourself what situation that person would have to be in or even has gone through to highly value such common and normal things. This is where Chainsaw Man hides its rather dark and thought-provoking elements right in plain sight for everyone to view and laugh at. And while it comes off quirky and silly, maybe even childish for Denji to think that way, did you ever think that maybe he's never experienced such simple things because of the rough upbringing he may have had, or the sickly situation he might have been in? Probably not. The narrative does an incredible job in covering those tracks so you don't ask questions when you're not supposed to. Instead, focus on how silly and docile Denji is for a 16-year-old. Look at these chaotic moments and monumental fights that are absolutely insane. For a 16-year-old boy, I feel Denji is incredibly stunted, both mentally and emotionally. He does not function like a normal human would. He does not see the world like a normal human would. He does not emotionally react like a normal human would. But Denji is far from normal. Even though at one point he may have never been like this, something has stopped him progressing further. Something has stunted his mental and emotional functionality that allows him to grow. This leads us back to the beginning of the video, and the one word that can completely change a person to their very core: trauma. And would you guess, Chainsaw Man continuously teased Denji's childhood and his upbringing as something horrible. horrible enough to be locked away and hopefully forgotten. The price you pay for locking away trauma, however, is not small. It slowly comes back and rots you. It viciously eats away at you, not allowing anything to flourish into an adult form and keeping you locked in with where it all started. The desires, the mindset, the emotions, everything is not functioning at full capacity because of a potential upbringing and childhood experience that can completely eclipse everything. A trauma that shouldn't even be connected to a child. A trauma that can break you. We actually have somewhat of a footing to start on regarding Denji's past. However, instead of it giving you too much information to dwell on, it somewhat directs you to a comparison. This would be chapter 1, as it's showcased in an overly grim light that seems unescapable. Keep in mind this is still Denji at 16 years old, accompanied by his only friend Pochita, as they struggle to survive within the world thanks to something that connects him to the past, his father's supposed debt. Because of this crippling debt and our knowledge of Denji's father up and dying, Denji is used to pay it off in any way imaginable. This includes selling body parts, killing devils with Pochita, eating a single slice of bread a day, living in a rundown shack and having no money whatsoever. How this lifestyle is portrayed is wholeheartedly saddening. It's what we are immediately introduced to and why his simple situational desires seem so prominent and worthwhile. Originally, you would be right to think that because of this lifestyle, the way Denji thinks and acts is actually rather normal. So of course, you can attribute some portion of his mindset to how he was forced to live. However, the further we progress throughout the narrative, the more Denji's past and trauma starts to unravel itself. A door would appear, and whatever is behind that door is something that has been locked away for quite some time and an experience that broke him. I would like to think and even hope that before this event took place within his childhood, Denji was most likely similar to any other child his age, going through life with no worries, growing and understanding the world, potentially having loving parents that supported him. But we know both of his parents are dead, so what led to the beginning of the end? Causality, or simply put, cause and effect. This is the construct of an action or event, which is cause, that results and builds varying effects. Now this effect can lead to another cause, which ultimately leads to another effect. It's a dangerous looping system that can corrupt many individuals that may not even be directly involved. If you were to apply this concept to Denji's childhood, knowing his parents are both dead and himself is completely broken and stunted, what would be the first thing you think of? For me, Denji is both an indirect cause and effect, or one that loops, meaning he has taken action from the effects of a prior situation, but still potentially feels the lingering effects from it till this day. The death of a family member is an extremely difficult thing to overcome, and to be brutally honest, some people can't. The ripple effect it has on a family is one that continuously changes throughout time, and even though we know little to nothing about Denji's family prior, other than the bits and pieces for his father, I feel this is the most fitting for now. I picture it like this. Denji, a normal boy, as an only child, had a loving family, a beautiful mother and a caring father, the ultimate trio. One day, that beautiful mother gets into an accident and sadly dies, and the ultimate trio is no more. The caring father has now turned to a lifestyle of heavy drinking and gambling to ease the burden of guilt and losing the one he loved. Denji, unable to comprehend death properly at his age, is placed within a realm of limbo, not sure mentally or emotionally how to process the death of his mother and the fact he would never see her again. The lifestyle worsens. The drinking becomes volatile and dangerous. His father is no longer the same person he once was, potentially blaming Denji, his own son, for the death of his beautiful wife. His father becomes a hollow reflection of what he once was, drinking away his days, taking out his anger or rage on Denji, while not providing anything for his son to live a normal life anymore. Everything has been ripped away, the home is broken, his father is broken, and thanks to the progressive emotion and mental turmoil Denji was put through, with one event leading to another which affects something else, he too cannot comprehend his own tragedy, and thus he sadly breaks. What's important to realize at this point is that Denji is no longer the same child he once was. He is a product of causality, product of his mother's tragic death. a product of his father's drinking, gambling, unlivable lifestyle, and the mental, emotional, and physical abuse that comes with it. The next event that would completely shatter everything is the effect of the actions that were taking place. Denji would kill his own father to desperately try and free himself from the clutches of madness. Keep in mind, this information regarding Denji killing his own father when he was a young child was provided only recently, as it was locked away behind that door that slowly started to reappear. To me, this explains almost everything on why Denji is the way he is, why he's so emotionally stunted, why he's so mentally childish, why the lifestyle he'd lived wasn't a bother, nor why he never questioned the legitimacy of other humans' intentions. He kept living, unable to progress any further under the shadow of his father's death, paying off the remaining debt to one day free himself fully. His only saving grace was his one and only friend that provided him a glimpse of happiness, Pochita. Without Pochita, I don't think Denji would have made it to the beginning of the narrative, and now it's even more important than ever, as Denji's core was completely rotten and obstructed. Pochita, his best friend, would be the happiness to replace it, and even slowly heal it, becoming Denji's heart and keeping him alive, wishing for him to create new memories that they both can share and experience. The rehabilitation is a long one and not a simple one. The road is filled with many twists and turns, but Pochita believes that one day they will both experience true happiness and find inner peace within a new beginning. Chainsaw Man is undoubtedly an enjoyable experience. The surface offers such a chaotic, unruly, and wildlike read. However, underneath possibly tells a different story. A story that is dark, realistic, and foreboding. It's not something that is paid close attention to, and it doesn't have to. But over time, the two start to intertwine more naturally together, to fuel and empower those chaotic moments with a past that's tragic, one that hurts to come to understand. I'd like to know how you feel about some of these concepts and elements hidden underneath, especially the ones surrounding Denji's past, with the little information we currently have about his father. But I want to thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Drink plenty of water, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.